All right, so I have my animation. It timed out pretty well. But now that I'm on the stage, there's certain things I can do. Right now it's at 0.4 for everything. But I think it might be fun. He moves so slowly and deliberately in the beginning. He grabs the tree. All of it makes sense. The background's pretty believable. Then it starts to get wild, right? So how can I make these moments kind of more exciting? And what I can do is on those frames, first of all, I can maybe speed them up a little bit. So maybe instead of 0.4 seconds, I do 0.35, just a tiny bit faster. And then the next one, maybe I speed that up a little bit, so 0.35. So you can set these all individually. And now this one, I'm going to go even faster, 0.3. And then this one, I'm going to go 0.3, maybe 0.2. And then this one, let's go back to 0.3. And let's get a sense of how that works, right? Just playing with the timing a little bit. So it goes faster, 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 right? It just all gets kind of sucked up. Bum, 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 bum. And now the beginning feels really slow, but that's okay. Okay, now I want to add a new frame at the end where he's just gone. And I can create that here. I mean, all I would need to do is to turn everything off. Make sure I just have the white background and nothing else turned on, right, in my assets. And then I can select all of it, copy it, paste it over as a new frame. But the problem is because I haven't cleared these, watch what happens. So this is going to teach you a little bit about how the timeline frames work. I'm going to paste in that new layer, and it just wiped out all of them, right? That's because when I paste in something new, when I have frames outputted, it adds it to every frame. But that's easy to fix. I just select every other frame, and I turn it off for those frames. So now I have a new blank white frame here. But it overwrote this one. So I need to create a new one, right? And now on this one, I turn this one off, and on this one, I turn that one off. So, because all these frames are programs for this eyeball. And if that is true, then not only can I change the timing on each one and change what's visible or what's not visible, but I can also add layer styles to them as I go. So starting from this point where things get weird, I can, if I'm on that frame, I can go to the layer that's showing for that frame, and I can program in a layer style. And I'm just going to do something simple like an inner glow. And I'm going to do something like pin light. I'm going to pick a color that's not too common in my frames, like this kind of golden yellow. And I'm going to make it more opaque, and I'm going to make it bigger. And I'm going to make it noisier. And this just kind of shows that things are getting strange. I'm going to jitter it a lot. Play with the size. Take the choke down. So at that moment, like it's just going to, things are going to be a little stranger. I'll take that overall opacity down. So it just kind of gives it a little aura. Because he's breaking reality now. As soon as it tears away. So you see how that's on there now. Now I can copy that layer style, and then I can paste it onto the next one. And then maybe it grows a little bit more. So I just increase the opacity a little bit. Increase the size a little bit. Okay? Then I'm going to copy that layer style, go to the next one, and paste it onto this one. Right? So now, those layer styles are having an effect, right? And now I'm going to paste it on to this one. But I'm going to start fading it out again. And then for the last one, paste it in and fade it out almost entirely. So that's just going to make all of those movements a little bit more dramatic. Something you can do by animating on the stage. These are like post-production effects. That little yellow, right? So let's go from here. You can see the effect that has. And those layer styles. Okay, now, how do I get it to reset, to loop? I can either play it backwards or I can crossfade it. And because I end with white, maybe I don't want white to just be 0.3 seconds. Maybe I want white to be back to 0.4 seconds. No, let's do 0.35. Because I sped things up, now I'm slowing it down again. And now I want to crossfade this. So it sets to reset by having the background kind of fade in from white, right, to get to my first frame. So I click on my last frame, I go to my very first frame, I hold down Command so that they're both selected, and then I'm going to use the Tween function within the timeline tools. And I can set however many frames. 5 will work pretty well. Take all the defaults and then say select. And what happens is all it's doing is taking the opacity slider here and it's changing them frame to frame. So you see how one is fading out, one is fading in. The problem is you see that checkerboard. So how can I fix this? Well, I have to make the background 100% for each frame. So you can also set opacity along with layer style, along with anything else. But if I don't set the backgrounds all to 100%, this is really helpful for time-lapse animations, then it's going to look like it gets fainter and then brighter again instead of just a straight crossfade. So now that should work as a transition. It only shows up at the end of the animation, but then it will reset it. So it comes back in, and now it all starts again. So this is my final animation. Finished it off on the stage. Cool. So if that works, I hit Command S to save. This is my stage file. Now to output it as a GIF, I go to File, Export, Save for Web Legacy. This is very different than Save As. If you save as and then choose the format GIF, you will only get a single image. You will not get an animation script. This is how you save the animation script. It brings up a special file here because a GIF has to take your millions of colors and it has to turn them into 256 colors. That's how GIFs save memory. But because they save so much memory, they can carry a whole stack of frames. And the settings I like are perceptual for the way it chooses those colors, and then bicubic smoother for the quality of it. But it can vary. And then you can preview it. And your GIF is just going to go a tiny bit faster than it plays on Photoshop, because in Photoshop with the millions of colors there's a bit of a processing delay. But the GIF will not have that once it's fully loaded. Right? Now you'll see the colors are a little washed out. That's because only these colors are allowed in a GIF. But I'll also show you how you can save it as a movie file with millions of colors if you want to put it up to like social media. Okay, so when you say save, it will save a new file with the same stage name, but it will have GIF as the file type. Under format, it says images only. Don't let that fool you. These are the different ways to do a web legacy animation script. You see, you've lost the older option. So yes, you just want the images. You don't want to have a separate folder that has all of the website information. So then I hit save, and then I find it on my desktop. Because it's only 100 pixels by 8 by 8 inches, it's going to process pretty quickly. And then to test it, I can simply open it with a web browser. So I'll use Safari, and you can see it just moves a little bit faster. And he looks big and lumbering, he eats the tree, and now things get a little weird. And then he leaves, and then it fades in and starts again. Okay, transformation complete, right? So that's going to go to Canvas. That goes right after my storyboard sketch. So that's requirement 2. Of 3 requirements. So this is the final GIF animation. This will probably be bigger than 5 megabytes, but that's okay. So just like it's a regular file, I drag it in. I'll put it into my folder after this, and then I shrink it so it's not taking up the whole screen, because remember, this is at larger than standard screen resolution. This is at 100 pixels per inch. All right, so I got my rough storyboard sketch, then I have my final GIF animation. Now, for yourself, from your stage file, while your timeline is out, you can now do this. You can click in the bottom left-hand corner of your timeline and convert it to a video timeline. This is the only way you can save it as an MP4 file, instead of just a frame-by-frame slide stack. And if you want to, you can take it into iMovie or into Premiere, you can add sound, but this is how you output it. You click in the timeline window options, and now because it's the video timeline, you have new options, right? And one of those is to render it as a video. So if you just click render video and keep all the defaults, it will save it as, I believe it's an MP4. Yes, an MP4 file. I'm going to save it to the desktop. And it will take a little bit longer to render, but not too long than the GIF, because now this is, I'll mark it as purple. This is kind of a unique file, because this cannot play online, right, unless you put it up to a site that has video playing capability like YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. But I can play it with QuickTime, which is the installed video player on the Macintosh operating system. And it will only play once through. So this way I can see that my animation is 11 seconds long. Right? But if I want it to loop continuously, I can go to View and set QuickTime to loop. I can make it full screen. And this is how I would do it if I was playing it for like a fine art gallery, right? Or showing it to a client. And now it will just keep playing through. But this time it has all of the millions of colors, and you can see how its quality is a good resolution for full screen display. Make sense? That is optional. That's how you save it as an MP4 file. All right, next step. We need to do the next requirement, which is the refined storyboard. So this is our first layout project in Photoshop. Layout's going to be more and more important for the rest of the class, because we're going to be doing more graphic design things, making vectors, putting them with raster, making posters, and getting things ready for printing. So layout is where things are arranged and really paying attention to the details. It's not super creative. It is fairly technical, but it makes our work look a lot better. So to do the layout for the refined storyboard, I have to clean my animation frames. To do that, I have to go back to frame by frame animation. So I click on that bottom left-hand corner, change the timeline back to frame by frame. Everything here is as I left it. All the transition frames are there. All the different timing is there. All the layer style effects are there, right? But in my layers, they are not there, right? They're only in these frames. So what I need to do is click on my topmost layer, and then I need to click on the timeline window options, and I'm going to say flatten frames into layers. This is the opposite of what we've done before, which was make layers from frames. So we're going to flatten frames into layers. And now you'll see in my layers, they are now called frames, and there is a frame for every one that's in the timeline. So even though I didn't have 30 different layers, I now have 30 different frames. But underneath those frames, and my animation will still play perfectly, underneath those frames I have my layers. And so I'm going to remove all of those from the file. So why do I say that that's cleaned. Well, now you have